Brigadier General Robert Umberg enlisted at the age of 18 and received a nursing scholarship at Walter Reed Army Institute of Nursing. She grew up in Texas, which has the second largest population of active duty and reserve members of the military.
I think the first reason was because it was a four-year scholarship and I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So a bachelor's degree and then being a nurse was a sound bet. And the second reason, and maybe it's even the first reason, was I liked the ratio of men to women. And to be honest with you, I was born there, but my father was in the Air Force, so I had an opportunity to grow up as within the military community and experience the military family as a child. So when, for example, my father was stationed in Italy, and I'd see new children in the neighborhood, and they were Italian, but they could speak English, and they'd say, "Oh, who are you?" And normally you would say your name, but the first thing I and my friends would say is, "I'm an American." And then we'd say our name. So that is what made me very comfortable with the military already.
In the United States Armed Forces, Brigadier General is a one-star general officer. It ranks above a colonel and below a major general. It is also equivalent to the rank of a rear admiral in the other uniformed services, such as the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard. Umberg's awards include the Legion of Merit, Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal, and the Army Achievement Medal. One of her most prestigious awards was the Lifetime Achievement Award for her service to veterans from the California Department of Veterans Affairs. Actions such as these depict why she was inducted into the Order of Military Medical Merit.
I think the first thing was that I had a passion for what I was doing. You know, as I shared with you the silly reasons that I joined the military, over time, those core values became a part of who I was, and I became passionate about serving my country and serving soldiers. And so when you're genuinely passionate about something, and I was wise enough to know, to learn from those before me, and NCOs, the higher enlisted rank, they developed a camaraderie with me, and I really believe it was the quality soldiers I served with that helped carry me off and on, that allowed me to ultimately move forward in my career.
The Gulf War, which involved Operations Desert Shield and Storm, started with the invasion of Kuwait by Saddam Hussein of Iraq. This led to an international coalition started by the United Nations Security Council to force Iraq to withdraw its troops from Kuwait by January 15, 1991. However, Saddam Hussein defied this, which led to a large U.S.-led air offensive. This operation lasted 42 days and ended on February 28th when President Bush ordered a ceasefire. The Gulf War was one of the first times women had been deployed in the military. A New York Times article from May 26, 1991 said, "The American public, watching the Persian Gulf War on television, got its first eyeful of American women in expanded military roles, despite policies that technically restrict women to non-combat functions."
I think the most relevant experience for me with Desert Storm, it was the first time our nation had ever deployed moms, sent moms away. And it was 2 weeks before Christmas. And I had trained, I was prepared, I felt I was a patriot, but doggone, where does motherhood fit in? And there was a lot of resistance. There were articles saying I was throwing my children out as a derelict mother. So I openly spoke of being proud and confident that I was doing the right thing, but inside I was dying, thinking if my children, and the oldest was in second grade, so I had 3 children, one still in diapers, if any one of my children become an axe murderer, I'm going to believe it's because I deserted them. There weren't studies to tell me this was going to be all right. So I was terrified, and that fear stayed with me for over a decade. And then when my daughter went to West Point, I realized no axe murderers here. They did understand that through example, that serving my country was a valuable and honorable thing to do.
Throughout her 36 years of active and reserve services for the United States Army, General Umberg deployed at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, the 121st Evacuation Hospital in Seoul, South Korea, and the United States Army Hospital in Vicenza, Italy. During her reserve service, she commanded Army hospitals in San Diego, California, Mesa, Arizona, Irvine, California, and Fort Gillem, Georgia.
It was an interesting experience because the country was so culturally different. And remember, that's a time when you don't have cell phones, and every evening at 6 p.m., the city alarms would go off because there was a curfew, and we were obligated to hide under our beds. As it's almost as though it was a daily bomb threat exercise, but the whole city, even the Koreans, participated. So it was quite the different experience, but also a wonderful one, an adventure.
General Umberg gradually moved up the chain of command throughout her career. According to Umberg's biography in her 2014 California Lifetime Achievement Award, quote, "Before her appointment with CalVet, while on active duty, Umberg held the position of Chief Professional Services, 3rd Medical Command, Fort Gillem, Georgia. As the senior Army Reserve nurse, she was a consultant for battlefield readiness, training, and career management for more than 27,000 medical personnel."
One of the beauties in the military is that it's a microcosm of our country. So there are jobs for everyone. You want to be a vet, a doctor, a nurse, an infantry soldier. For me, I began to feel that nursing wasn't my real calling, and being a soldier was. And so over time, I initially began as a nurse, and then I moved into more administrative roles. And then, doggone it, I wanted to show that women could do what men could do. And commanders of hospitals were always doctors. And anyway, and so I applied for that. And once I became one of the first female commanders, the rest is history as long as I got results. And so I then spent most of my time looking at serving our soldiers, how we can run a smooth hospital, how I can train them for battlefield readiness, and I moved up the administrative chain.
In 2011, California Governor Jerry Brown appointed General Umberg to oversee the Veterans Home Division in the California Department of Veterans Affairs. She has consistently shown her deep concern for veterans, once quoting George Washington saying, "The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional to how they perceive veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by our nation."
I am interested, and to the day I die, I think myself and anyone else that's ever put on that military uniform, we see ourselves obligated to serve our comrades. And my hair is raising because I mean this. We are obligated to serve our fellow comrades for the rest of our lives to the day we die. So having an opportunity to work within the state of California for veterans, I had only worked for active duty prior to that, to serve veterans was wonderful, wonderful.
Due to the highly controversial nature of the Vietnam War, many Vietnam veterans were treated very poorly upon their return to the United States.
I believe that American citizens, unlike after the Vietnam War, in which it is a tragic and shameful period of our history and how we treated those troops returning from Vietnam, I believe our country is united in support of our young men and women that have served. I also believe there are a tremendous amount of resources, which may surprise all of you. The problem is, how do we connect our veterans to those resources?
Thank you very much for your service, and we all appreciate it a lot.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for your service.
Well, can I share with you a little funny story? And then this may have to be edited out because it may be inappropriate, so I'm glad that your teacher is sitting back there, and you might want to open your ears so you can tell them it's a no-go. But when I did deploy, my oldest child was at a Catholic school, and they decided to send me cards. And so this was one of the cards, and it says, "You're in the Army now." And on the other side, look how nice, this is from a second grader. And I opened up the card. This second grader is now a 6'4" young man, but and his name was Matt Fowler. It's all misspelled, and it says, "Dear Mrs. Umberg, I hope you are feeling comfortable. because not everyone's been to a WHORE. We're all praying for you.